Hey everybody, it is Kristie with Fur Babies and Friends. I am the owner and the positive reinforcement dog trainer here in Glendale, Arizona. And I wanted to talk about a topic that I think most people don't ever think about and or consider, and that is the proper introduction to tools, whether it be a collar, like whether it's a collar or a leash, a vest, a harness, or even a bandana. Oftentimes, especially when we get a puppy, this is really applicable to puppies, is we tend to think, I need to put this collar on you because it's for safety, so somebody could identify you, I could get a hold of you in an emergency situation. And so when we get our puppy home, of course we all like to pick out the cute collars. Of course I have a little bling collar for my puppy Mela. We always like to pick out the cute collars because it's a little bit of like accessorizing, but it's also for safety. And so we approach the puppy or the dog and we're like, here, let me put this on. We expect them, right? Our initial expectations, or I think our subconscious expectations, is the puppy is just going to sit there and allow you to put whatever tool on. But in reality, what happens is the puppy's like, whoa, hold up, what are you doing? What is that? I don't know what that is. I haven't explored it. You're coming into my consent bubble with this tool. They get really nervous. They back away. We instinctively are like, but no, I just want to put this on you. And so we physically hold them while we put the collar on. When you are physically restraining your dog, that is not consent. And I just want to be clear. That is not your dog consenting to what you are doing. That is your dog actually withdrawing consent. And as dogs progress, even adult dogs, this is a lot of times how bites happen, is that people are not reading a dog's body language. They are invading the dog's consent bubble. The dog is trying to communicate. We're not listening because we become so fixated on the task at hand and what we want to do as far as putting a collar on, etc., that we miss those body language cues. We misread them, we misinterpret them, desire to accomplish our mission. So in the next segment here, I'm gonna show you and talk to you about what it should look like, or what are the proper steps for actual tool introduction to your dog. And how do you get their consent? How do you build the trust in invading their consent bubble? And how do you move forward in the future as they grow and develop, or even if you have an adult dog, and making sure that you're clearly setting expectations when these tools come out. You're holding your dog accountable for those expectations, and that most importantly, your dog is comfortable and not over aroused, fearful, anxious, or even evasive, when these tools come out, because a lot of these tools we need for our dogs to live in a human world with us. And that's so important, and a big reason why we need to get their consent and properly introduce our tools to our dogs so that they understand that we don't mean any harm and they're part of the process and not just, a victim of the process. So here we will move on to proper introduction. So I'm back with my dog, Apollo. This is my demo dog I use for training often. And I'm here to show you the proper ways that you can introduce any sort of tools to your dog. So I have here one of his collars. Come here, Apollo. I have here one of his collars. So step one that is very important is you want to make sure that anytime you bring a new tool home, you let your dog get comfortable and acclimate to it themselves. So I'm just gonna put this collar on the ground. I'm gonna put some treats around it, and I'm just gonna let Apollo eat the treats around the collar. In doing this, he's approaching the tool himself. That is getting his buy-in. He's also getting a chance to feel it, understand texture. So this allows him to get comfortable with it before ever invading his consent bubble and ever forcing something on him. So this step might take you a few times. It might take you a few days. Go slow. You want to make sure that your dog is a willing participant, actively coming up to the collar, sniffing, and eating the treats. If your dog is eating the treats, that is a really good sign that your dog is comfortable with the tool. So next step is, once your dog is comfortable with this tool, next step is getting your dog comfortable with it just being in close proximity. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to hang the collar on my wrist, and I'm just going to let him eat treats while it stays here on my wrist. And you can slowly begin to move the collar up closer to them as they eat the treat. Again, this process might take a few sessions, might take a few days of a few sessions, but the goal is you want to make sure that your dog is comfortable and is actively engaging with your treats, because obviously if they're eating food, they're not as fearful or they're not shut down. So once you get through that step, the next step is I like to work on just gently placing collar over the dog's head or on their neck, remove it, and I'm still feeding treats this whole time. I'm gently gonna put the collar over their neck and I'm gonna remove it while he's still eating treats, but I put the collar over his neck, I'm gonna remove it while he's still eating treats. This session might take you a few more times. It might take a little bit more to get buy-in from your dog, so go slow. If they're flinching, if they're backing away, if they're not comfortable with you placing the collar over their neck, they're not ready for the next step. So once they're comfortable, then you can go on to actually putting the collar on. Now, me personally, I like my dogs to be in a sit and to be calm while I am putting a collar on, while I'm putting a harness on, while I'm putting their leash on. So these are the expectations that I set for my dogs. And I think it's really important that you should be clear, you and your family, as far as what are your expectations for your dogs when you engage in activity like this. Do you want them to sit? If so, when you start training these or introducing any tools, make sure you're setting those expectations very upfront and holding your dog accountable. So again, Apollo knows this and he's been through it, so this is why he's sitting here. So if he wasn't in a sit, I would ask him to sit, right? You could ask for a watch if you wanted to make sure that they're paying attention. Now, as you go to actually put the collar on, you can work on either giving a handful of treats and then clipping the collar. Good boy. Make sure once the collar is clipped, you pet, you reward. As long as they have held the position that you put them in, that's good. That's exactly what you want. So then once you've clipped it, take it off. Good boy. Reward it and reinforce it. Then you can repeat and try again. So ready? Sit. Good boy. If your dog is eating the treats too fast or backing away, one of the things that I suggest you can do is make a treat pile on the ground. Now, we obviously can't sit necessarily, but with the treat pile on the ground, that allows you to keep their attention and focus on the treats while you go ahead and put the collar on. So then make sure you reward, reinforce it, so they begin to know that engaging in this activity with you, even though it's just as simple as putting a collar on, is something fun, is something that they want to do with you, and they don't build any fear with it. So those are my quick kind of steps or suggestions for any sort of tool introduction that you're going to do with your dog. Make sure you go slow, let them explore it themselves, slowly bring it into their consent bubble and make sure they are allowing you to come into their consent bubble, and then just go slowly when you actually introduce a tool. This is a really great way, especially for puppies. If you rush this and I were to hold him, like let's say he didn't know this, and I just came up and I was like, roar, and I was wrestling him and he was fighting me, and so I hold him and I choke him and I struggle to try and get this on, right? As I'm clicking this, notice how he got up. He got nervous. He doesn't like that. Puppies are going to be way less cooperative. So it is really important that you go very slow, because having tools on, especially things like a collar or a harness or anything like that, is going to be a big part of your dog's life for the rest of their life. And these initial exposures, especially for puppies, is going to shape how they see this for the rest of their life. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you a little bit of food for thought, especially if you have maybe dogs that get overexcited at the thought of going out for a walk, or you have dogs that get excited as leaving the house and going on a car ride. This is a good way to kind of help them understand what's expected, calm them down, because remember, the energy level that your dog has in the house is the energy level they are going to carry outside with them. So if your dog's already at 80% excitement and you get outside and they see another dog, or they see a cat, or they hear a motorcycle go by, that's going to increase their excitement. It's going to put them over their threshold or into their stress responses, right? Just like humans, dogs have stress responses, which are the F's. So fight, flight, freeze, fidget, and fawn. There's also faint if you think about fainting goats, right? So there's technically 6. But hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to like, comment, and share. Leave me any of your thoughts or comments. And stay tuned because we are going to move on to more important tools that are often overlooked. Thank you so much. Have a good day.